normally be. And then after that, your guess is as good as mine. I think it's just going to be, there's going to be 2 waves of demand for this. And whether there's more than those 2 at this price point is anybody's guess.
Well, it'll be very interesting to see what happens when this launches in just about a couple months now. Very, very expensive new hardware, possibly setting a scary precedent for what actual next-gen consoles are going to cost, and not really giving a whole lot of reason why anyone would need it. But you know, there are a lot of PlayStation fans out there, so we'll see what happens. I guess
they don't have to worry about Osborning sales of the PS5 by announcing this 2 months before it comes out, because I don't think anybody's gonna pass over a PS5 to wait for the $700 version.
But viewers, we want to know what you feel about all this. We do have these 2 polls up. We're going to keep those polls up on IGN.com all week. Is the PS5 Pro reasonably priced, and will you buy a PS5 Pro? Make sure your voice is heard. Vote at IGN.com sometime this week. And that's going to do it for this edition of Next Gen Console Watch. Very exciting times recently. We have lots of exciting stuff to talk about.
Let's see, what is...
Man, I wish I had 750 donuts like this sign says.
It says $750, not donuts.
What if each donut cost $1?
I hate that you're kind of right.
Switch to Progressive.
Welcome to Inside Games, the only gaming news show brave enough to say the price of the PS5 Pro is too damn high.
It's really up there, yeah, but consider this, Bruce. Where else are you going to play The Last of Us Part 2 Remake Remastered Part 2 in 8K?
On the PC, because we'll just wait till it comes to Steam in like a year.
Touche.
The new PS5 Pro, wow, has been officially announced as like a really terrible Christmas gift this morning. And we hope you've got $700 handy.
PlayStation just pulled the whole, hey, buddy, right in the gut. And you just have to pretend like it's a friendly thing that you guys do. In a blog post, the new PlayStation boss Hideaki Nishino unveiled the new console, which he called, quote, the most visually impressive way to play games on PlayStation.
Okay, and true to the leaks, it did have the 3 Adidas stripes down the middle. So there it is. Look at it. That little concept art was true.
The TLDR version with the new console is that it'll have better graphics and higher frame rates. You kind of hope. If it went the other way, there'd be a serious problem. And it'll launch on November 7th. Pre-orders begin on September 26th. And it's got no disk drive. And it's $700. Did we mention it's $700? God damn. More on that later.
This is blowing my mind that they got rid of the disk drive and then raised the price by $200. Anyway, as for specifics, the new machine has an upgraded GPU with 67% more compute units than the current PS5 console and 28% faster memory. Overall, Sony says it'll have 45% faster rendering.
Those are good numbers, sure. Nishino also said that the console will have better ray tracing that provides more dynamic reflection and refraction of light, with speeds sometimes tripling the current PlayStation 5.
It also will have something called PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, which is an AI-driven upscaling that uses a machine learning-based technology to provide sharper
really good opening rounds,
clarity.
and I can have
this tech that's been in like PC graphics for the last 3 or 4 years, so it makes sense that it's now trickling down to the console space. Sony also had a video presentation from lead architect Mark Cerny doing a deep dive into the machine.
At least half of those games still.
He said, quote, it's the most powerful console we've ever built. Somehow missing the opportunity to release a newer, weaker console. Which, I mean, you know, they could have done like the Series S thing.
Yeah, nobody wants something that's newer and weaker. On that note, hey, Our sponsor today can lead to a newer, stronger you.
Inside Games is brought to you by Thesis. Thesis helps people like you and me find the right blend of nootropic ingredients for our brain chemistry. What nootropics are they are nutrient compounds that help improve cognitive function. So they can be a powerful, natural way to boost your motivation, boost your creativity, your mood, and your focus. Thesis uses nootropics that are made with clinically studied ingredients, and every batch is third-party tested. Now, lots of people are trying to improve their productivity and focus, and that's one thing that this may do for you. Managing everyday stress, which is important for a lot of people, especially like me, who are constantly working and trying to make sure everything's going good. So in order to get started with Thesis first, you take the quiz on their website. And this is about discovering the blend that best fits your brain chemistry. You'll try each one of these blends for a week, and then you'll kind of note how you feel. The right blend should help you feel a little more awake, focused, productive, that sort of thing. So if you want to try out Thesis, take that free 3-minute quiz to find out what your brain needs. Just click the link in our description and use our code to save $60 on your first purchase when you sign up for Thesis. Thank you again, Thesis, for the sponsor to the episode. And now let's find out the big reasons for the PS5 Pro.
A big reason for the new PS5 Pro console, Cerny said, is because they don't want people to have to choose between performance or quality presets, which are pretty much standard on PS5 games these days.
Yeah, which I appreciate. He said, quote, players are choosing performance about 3/4 of the time, which is interesting data from Mark Cerny. And it also makes a lot of sense. It's one of those things where whenever we see Todd Howard be like, 30 FPS is fine. No, Todd, it's not. 60 FPS is what people want.
It was only fine when every game was 30 and people didn't know the difference.
People want 60 FPS because that's what's going on right now.
But do people want 60 FPS plus all those other goodies? And are they willing to pay for it? I don't know about that one. The console also has something called the PS5 Pro Game Boost, which Sony says may stabilize or improve the performance of supported PS4 and PS5 games.
But some sample games that will benefit from the enhancement are Alan Wake 2, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Demon's Souls, Dragon's Dogma 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Gran Turismo 7, Hogwarts Legacy, Horizon Forbidden West, Marvel Spider-Man 2, and The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. In all, more than 8,500 backward-compatible PS4 games will actually get a boost from this feature, which is pretty cool.
That's pretty cool, but I feel like I don't know. I'm being extraordinarily negative, but usually with features like that, you go to a game you remember and you play it for like 20 minutes and you're like, wow, and that's kind of where it stops. But it's cool. It's cool. As for the console itself, the PS5 Pro is actually the same size as an original PS5, same width as the current PS5 model. It comes with a larger 2 terabyte solid state drive, which is nice. Swaps one of its rear USB-A ports for another USB-C port. It's compatible with the PlayStation VR2 headsets, the PlayStation Portal handheld, and existing PS5 controllers.
Oh, and one other big note, it has no disk drive. You can add one yourself for an extra $80, but this to me is maybe the biggest slap in the face of the whole announcement, that they raised it by $200 and then also got rid of the disk drive.
Oh, it gets worse with the disk drive thing. We have a whole conspiracy theory about that later, but the sticker price is still going up, Bruce, because it doesn't have vertical stand. That's another $30. So if you want the kit, PS5 Pro with a disk drive and a vertical stand, it's actually $810. And I have a theory about that too. I think they made the PS5 such an ungainly shape to make it so you kind of need a vertical stand. Otherwise, it's this wide fucking thing that floats above your cabinet. It has flared lapels that kind of prevent you from putting anything around it. Damn, man. It gets under my skin a little bit.
Now for the really bad news. Like we said, it's $700, sorta. If you need another controller, Sony also when it's like yesterday or the day before, quietly raised prices of this DualSense controller by $5, which again, just nickel and diming us, like PlayStation's been doing for years, and it hurts.
Yeah, that's no improvements to the controller either, by the way. It's the same 20-minute battery, same drift-prone sticks that are really hard to swap out. Everything. It's just $5 more.
Yeah, the high prices immediately drew comparisons to Sony's infamous 2006 press conference, one of our favorites here at Inside Games, where then CEO Kaz Hirai unveiled the PS3, and it's now a legendary $599 price tag.
Funny, because we've been making some comparisons to PS3 era Sony lately, and I guess we're fully back there. Sony's announcement on X was immediately blasted by people who criticized the price tag and the fact that it didn't come with a disc drive.
Over on the PS5 subreddit, user BearClaw135 wrote, "This would be more tempting if it came with a disc drive. price killed my excitement.
The Verge's Tom Warren also addressed the $700 issue, tweeting that the price tag certainly tests the waters for next-gen console pricing and diskless consoles. He added, hold on to your disk drives and wallets because next-gen consoles aren't going to be cheap and will almost certainly come diskless as a standard, or just get into PC, but again, we'll get into that later.
Meanwhile, this comes as Sony's financials are predicting a 2% drop in sales, which they partly attributed to hardware for the current fiscal year, which could explain why they're putting on a Pro model now. It definitely explains why they're raising all their prices.
All this comes as the PlayStation 5 is still pretty handedly beating the Xbox Series X and S, having sold nearly 60 million units as of the end of March. But as industry analyst Daniel Ahmad noted, that's actually slightly behind the PS4's totals during the same time frame.
He added that, quote, while console hardware sales are healthy, Sony is unable to sell more than the prior gen, probably because there are no video games.
And that's, yeah, there's that, but there's like a bigger problem behind that, which is that the games industry has only been able to maintain health as long as it's been scaling up and up and up. So if they finally found the outer boundaries of what they can sell, suddenly it's going to become about right sizing and finding the right ROI instead of just pouring money into a furnace that keeps generating gold bars for you. Anyway. And I think we're seeing that in recent headlines for Sony. They've been kind of up, kind of down. The new Astrobot for PS5 released to widespread acclaim, was a much needed exclusive, I think, and introduced a little bit of joy to the brand, I guess. But Sony also shut down its much hyped shooter Concord after less than 2 weeks.
Even Astrobot has a history with studio closures as Sony shuttered their long-running Japan studio in June 2021, integrating some staff with Astrobot developers team Asobi.
Yeah, that's kind of what churned my guts a little bit, seeing references to things like Ape Escape and Ico inside of Astrobot. Sony just killed that studio and moved them into Team Asobi. Now maybe some of those developers were instrumental in getting those references in there, but it was a rough reminder that Sony has actually killed off a lot of the games that people remember and love over the years. Japan studio, like I said, they've made Ape Escape, Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, and Gravity Rush.
And they also made Knack, Lawrence.
Can't forget Knack. And somehow Sony found it in themselves to close the studio that made Knack. So.
Wow.
Yeah, like I said, even though Astrobot might be all bright and cheery and happy, it sure does reference a lot of franchises that PlayStation has smothered to death with a pillow in their sleep because they weren't profitable enough.
Speaking of not making money, it's easy to see a narrative on the surface here. PlayStation's games as a service streams haven't really quite worked out. Helldivers might be the only one so far. So they're panic launching new hardware at an inflated price to try and get some of that money back as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's the narrative that seems the most obvious, but some of the data doesn't quite match with that. Also, I don't think that Sony's business plans can be changed that quickly. You know, like because Concord flopped, I don't think that really affected the price or the launch timing of PS5 Pro. But I do think they planned it now because they knew they wouldn't have any hot games this year a few years ago. But let's look at some of the data that's kind of circumstantial around it. For starters, and this was kind of surprising to me, turns out sales of the PlayStation 4 Pro weren't really that high.
Nico Partners Director of Research and Insights Daniel Ahmad commented that the PS4 Pro sold less than 15% of the base PS4's lifetime sales.
That's a low percent, but the PS4 is one of the best-selling consoles of all time. So let's see here. The PS4 sold 117 million units. That puts the PS4 Pro at less than 18 million consoles, which isn't a ton, not for PlayStation.
Nice chunk of change, especially if they're selling the PS5 Pro at profit, which they probably are. So this could be some decent change depending on this profit margin. But Sony indicated they're still not earning a profit on their hardware, or at least they weren't in 2023. I think the Pro changes that. I really do.
I'm really curious. Yeah, so this is from Sony's fiscal 2023 report. They mentioned that they experienced an increase in losses in hardware due to promotions, and that 2024 would see a decrease in hardware losses due to lower unit sales.
Okay. It's like a logic puzzle.
Yeah, kind of.
So they'll lose less money because they expect to sell fewer consoles. This sure sounds like normal PS5s are selling at a loss, which makes sense.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me wonder if the Pro is going to sell at a profit, or maybe less of a loss than they were planning. Maybe if everything else was working out, they could take the hit on the hardware, but now that it's not, they have to trim up their losses per unit. Who knows? Regardless, this is all just kind of academic, but that's what we do. whether or not Sony earns a profit on their console doesn't make $700 any more affordable for you.
No, it doesn't. There's another more obvious and also more insidious angle Sony will take to suck the money out of your accounts, because that's what they've been doing for years, like I've been saying on the show. Digital-only games. Now, this is something I say often, but I buy video games almost every day because I do lots of giveaways on my stream. The PlayStation Store is always the most expensive by a long shot for any of these video games. And we've reported on that a number of times here, talking about this little monopoly they've got going.
Yeah, I'm still surprised that people don't really take and run with this, because it's the most verifiably shady thing that PlayStation does. That, like Bruce said, they straight up inflate all of the prices of games and DLC on the PlayStation Network because they earn a percentage of all those sales. So the higher the prices are, the higher their cut.
Yeah, this is not paranoia. They have faced lawsuits on this that actually crunched this data and proved it.
I think the disk drive is available so that they have a parachute out of being sued. People can just buy the drive, and then physical games have to compete with each other. Physical games are cheaper, but it's not the default choice anymore. It requires an extra purchase, and also you've got to break open your PlayStation 5 and bolt it into place. A lot of people that are already strapped to buy a $700 console are going to try to look for savings, and probably that's going to include not buying a disc drive. So you're essentially guiding people directly down the path of overcharging them for games for years and years and years. It's this has been done a lot. It's like selling a printer for $20.
I can
With
attach
starter
2 Griffs
ink cartridges that last a week,
a
and then you
rare
hit them with an
opportunity
$80 refill a little bit later, but then they're stuck. They're stuck for life using your crappy overpriced ink. So if you are in the PlayStation ecosystem, please be aware of that. Save yourself some money. Get the disc drive for now. Maybe instead of putting $700 towards a Pro, move into PC, please.
Holy
because
shit,
even
Ricardo.
digital stores on PC compete with each other. And there's a free game every week from Epic because of it, and a lot of Steam sales. And it may be a slightly higher investment in hardware to begin with, but you save so much money over the years and years and years in all the games you buy.
Lawrence is right, and a lot of people at home are going to be like, but Lawrence, I don't have $1,200 to spend on a PC. That's what they're saying, and I completely understand and I hear you. I don't think, at the risk of sounding jaded, this is literally just a cash grab. This is maybe the worst possible time to launch a console because inflation has been so high. Everyone's, sort of still reeling from all the price increases on every single thing you're buying in your life. Honestly, this is like so cocky and arrogant of Sony to launch this console without a disc drive for $700 on their digital-only store that is clearly a monopoly. Like, all of this is so bad. There's just so many terrible things about it, and I would recommend, I don't often say this, but I would recommend not buying this. To me, there are no video games. It's way overpriced. Like, it's just like all the way around a terrible deal. And I don't see any silver lining to this. I really don't. Which is rare. It's pretty rare. And I've been seeing this, like, Sony turn on this for the last few years, and now that we're fully, deep into this almost recession, it's just not really, this just isn't good. And I just wouldn't do this. Even if you want the PS5 Pro, like, I'm going to buy it for work, right? And we're going to show it off on stream and do the whole deal. But I'm not going to say buy this if you're actually looking for a console. Just get the PS5. Get the disc drive PS5, which is like, I think $450, $400, something like that. And
picture this. Saving up to 10% when you bundle your home and auto insurance with USAA. Some things just click. Get a quote today.
Who the fuck is his most powerful Pokemon? Like, I don't think I've seen Venonat before.
Life is of little value in Rome.
And I have
Living in the
everything at
shadow
my
of the
disposal
rich
now
and
on this
powerful.
game.
But
So
all
that
of
feels
this is about to
actually
change.
really good.
Nothing is more important than protecting our beloved Rome.
The moment is upon us. Kill or be killed.
that way you'll have a disc drive. And you can then buy video games on Amazon for $40 rather than the $70 they're charging on their digital store. So There's just so many different things. If you don't want to go the PC route like Lawrence and I have done and have done for years, do that. Try and figure out ways to undercut Sony. Because again, also the key reselling websites never sell keys for PlayStation 5 games because they've got a monopoly. It's the worst.
Unlike Xbox, PlayStation intentionally does not sell game codes. They only sell PlayStation 5 store credit codes. So yeah, they control the in and the out. And yeah, digital resellers don't have to compete with each other because they're not allowed to. Sony's got it locked down. So it's pretty clever, I guess. But there's a lot of people, I think, overpaying for a lot of games for a lot of years. The only upside I can see is it's actually a pretty efficiently designed hardware kit. For $700,
I play with
ecosystem
4 energy
notwithstanding,
switches. Okay, cool.
the performance that it can put out is probably the best you get for $700. If you bought a PC for $700, you couldn't do what a PS5 Pro can do, but you'd have access to a lot more and a lot cheaper games. And if you're the type of player that prefers frame rate over image quality, you have access to all those tools on a PC as well. I also think we're definitely at the point of diminishing returns on graphics. And I think we passed that point a while ago. I think the fact that people choose performance mode over quality is an indication of that. And they can still have fun with their games. Maybe there's that PC style fuzz in the back of your head where you're like, oh, how good could it look? And then you run out to the store to buy a $50,000 video card just to see, and then it doesn't work, and you get, well, it's a whole thing. So yeah, it does seem like it's a console that follows very traditional console development ideologies, but I don't think those apply so much anymore. I think we're kind of out of that window. So I'm really curious to see how this will go over. I'm really curious because there's no big new game to push it either, aside from maybe Black Ops 6, but that wasn't in the PS5 Pro boosted list. It was a bunch of old stuff that have been out for a year or two.
I think this is an overreach, Lawrence. I don't think this is going to sell well. I think these units are going very, very slowly. I think it's going to be like PSVR 2, where VR 2 they had to reevaluate and go like,
I don't have that card.
We don't need to sell 1 million of these. Well, we'll only sell 500,000. I think that's what this is going to be. I think the PS5 Pro is going to be the same problem. I'll be really, really curious to see what the sales units are like.
I think we're experiencing this in all aspects of our lives right now, but for sure in the PlayStation ecosystem, the free money's over, and now it's time for all the screws to tighten. So if you're invested in that ecosystem, it's going to get rough, and maybe look at ways of getting out. That would be my advice. It's kind of what we've been saying for the past couple of years, because I think we all saw this coming.
All right, here are some Inside Games patrons that support our Patreon every single month. They actually sleep on a bed made of PlayStation 5 Pros. I don't know how they're doing this. Ryan Dareberry, Sherwin Sanchez, Rook, and Loveless.
My patrons are much more humble. They cut some corners. They got to tighten the belt. That's why they're sleeping under a pile of PlayStation 5 Pro boxes. Great insulation. Pit Strip, Ray Pichardo, Dougal Tutbo, and Lenny Nieves. I'm going to go with that pronunciation this month. Thank you very much for supporting the show. We really appreciate it.
Because I understand the point of playing a Velto. That's actually a pretty cool play. I really like that.
At Vistaprint, we print signs so people can see your brand up close. But we also print signs so that people can see your business here.
Problem is, I'm going to be up 3-0
so you
here.
stand out. Even when they're way back here. Get 20% off signs and banners at Vistaprint.com.
So, how do I get him? Switch card won't do anything here. And I can't play it anyways. So it's just item cards. So I can play stadium cards still. Interesting. Okay.
Hello guys and gals, me Mudahar, and yeah, normally I don't make a follow-up video like this, but yeah, the PlayStation scam is a lot worse than I actually thought of. Now to give a quick idea about it, ladies and gentlemen, the PS5 Pro got announced yesterday, and I made a video where I said it is not worth the $700 US that Sony is asking for it. Now, if you think that was a joke, the $700, no. This is from an actual official Sony press release, okay? They basically showed this PlayStation 5, and they brought up the fact that, yes, it's 700 US, 700 Great British Pounds, and for some reason, 800 euros, okay? Now, meaning that if you're in Canada, like me, for instance, in my land, before taxes, okay, this is $950, $60. After taxes, just the console alone is costing you $1,000. Now, to give one quick idea over here, this is getting to a point where it's so expensive that you might as well consider joining the world of PC gaming, okay? When I was younger, okay, I used to justify consoles because overall it really was a cheaper barrier of entry to just playing the video games you wanted to play with your friends. Like for instance, back in the day, if I wanted to play Oblivion,
I wish
dealing
A-Spec
with building
cards
a
could
computer,
bypass
especially
that,
during a
but I
time
think
when
that's
PC
really
gaming
cool. This is a
wasn't even
really
as
cool
popular as it
concept.
was nowadays,
I like this.
it was easier to just buy an Xbox 360, stick a copy of Oblivion in, and play the game. Even if it was at 30 frames per second, the game ran fine enough, and you could play through all of Oblivion, right? And that's pretty much how most of my gaming was done for a period of my life. Now, honestly, when it was a PlayStation 4 generation, I was playing most of my video games on consoles. Heck, the entire reason the Shenmue video got made was because I was literally just playing that video game on my PlayStation to begin with. Even though I had these games on my PC, it was just more convenient for me to load them up on a PlayStation 4 and just record my footage off of them without having to deal with going onto my PC, setting up OBS settings for it, and dealing with all of that nonsense. Hitting one button and letting my system record for hours at a time was pretty awesome. Now, PlayStation 5 is one of those systems where it's pretty much one of the most boring upgrades, literally almost like an iterative upgrade over the PlayStation 4. So, like I said in yesterday's video, the PlayStation 5 generation is not that impressive from a gaming perspective, okay? Not a lot of these games, at least the exclusive ones, they're not really at a quantity or really anything that's blowing me away. You know, when we started with the PlayStation 4 generation, there were games like Killzone Shadowfall that absolutely pushed the system to its limit right before it even released. And that's impressive to see. Nowadays with PlayStation 5, it really felt like Demon's Souls, which was a remake of a PlayStation 3 game, pretty much shot for shot. While yes, it looked pretty, didn't really blow me away from a gameplay perspective. I'm somebody that cares more about the gameplay now than I ever really cared about just the visual aspect. I have a PC for visual games, but generally if the gameplay for something isn't really grabbing me, it doesn't matter how pretty it looks. So looking at the price again, and the PlayStation 5, which quite literally is ribbed for her pleasure with these fucking stripes on the side, I wanted to see just how good of a value this actually was. So there's been a bit of speculation as to what parts have been inside the system, and that, I'll just straight up say, is very much speculation. Whether you get it from me, whether you get this information from Digital Foundry, whether you get it from anyone doing analysis, you don't really know what the true extent of the hardware is, because the only one with that documentation is Sony. But I decided to go to PC Part Picker and just quickly put together a system that was roughly equivalent to what I expected out of the PlayStation system. Now, one thing that was interesting, and the reason why I wanted to revisit this video this quickly, is because according to Sony's release, nothing in this upgrade list talks about a CPU. So one of the things that I mentioned last time was, you know, a game like Grand Theft Auto 6, which is most likely dropping next year, hopefully, you know, maybe there's a 60 FPS version on the PS5 Pro. There's probably not going to be a 60 FPS version. With open world games, the most important aspect of them is the constant, real-time tick that happens with the CPU. to render thousands of NPCs, or at least the amount of NPCs that were in the GTA 5 trailer, to render those things and the logic and the world and the vehicles and just the logic of Vice City running per second on your device.
See, this is why I should have used my boss right away on the fucking
Now,
Venonat. I
PlayStation
should have
5 was
known.
already something that,
This is a
well, yes,
really
it was
cool
a
card
big upgrade over the
that was
PlayStation
introduced
4
in the
generation.
151
I don't
set.
think
I
it's
haven't
going
played
to
against
run
this deck yet
GTA
at
5,
all.
or sorry, GTA 6
This is just
at
really
60
cool.
frames per second. I just don't really think it's that possible.
Okay,
Now,
so I
of
don't
course,
have to worry
if
about
you're
him
not
anymore.
upgrading
Power
the
up.
CPU, there's a pretty good chance that the game is just going to be running at 30 frames, even on the PS5 Pro, except the only difference is the ray tracing might be better, and the game will run at a higher resolution, okay? How much will you notice that as you play the game with the cops chasing you as you're doing story missions, playing online? I think that really depends on the person. But as somebody that's been gaming for goddamn near my entire life, I can tell you something right now. Usually,
Oh my god,
when
I'm
you're
gonna
in
die here,
motion
aren't I?
and sitting that far away from your television, because this is a video game console, you're probably not going to notice the difference between like 4K or something like 1440p or 1800p or any of these resolutions, especially if that resolution keeps fluctuating as you play the game in a dynamic fashion. So to go back to PC Part Picker, because they never upgraded the CPU, I decided to throw in a Ryzen 7 3700X, which
Yeah,
I
this is
believe is
amazing.
pretty much the equivalent of what you expect with a base PlayStation 5 anyways, and what you'd expect with the PlayStation 5 Professional. I decided to put in the CPU cooler, which again, it wasn't really that crazy extravagantly expensive. The motherboard, I gave it 32 gigabytes of memory versus 16 gigabytes because I figured with PC gaming, with PC stuff, you probably want to be at least a bit higher than consoles, okay? Just in terms of memory. I decided for storage, I wanted to match what the PlayStation 5 was bringing, and I gave it 2 terabytes for $117. When it came to the video card, I decided the best approximation was a RTX 3070. Given the fact that the PlayStation 5 Pro is supposed to be better at ray tracing, like something around 3 times what the original system is supposed to be, and of course, the actual system will,
Yeah,
just
poisoning
have
doesn't do
45%
anything.
better
Just have to-
compute for whatever reason, for their metrics. I figure the best equivalent here would probably be the RTX 3070. And then going down further, there was a case, and of course, a 750 watt power supply. All of this totaling to around $1,194. Now, given the fact that, usually with a PlayStation or an Xbox or a Nintendo product, to play online, you got to pay for a subscription, you got to pay for a proprietary controller. This amount of money that you're seeing, kind of roughly equals out. One of the biggest issues I made in like the last video was
That's so
showcasing
cool.
Best Buy off-the-shelf builds, which usually came with a pretty substantial labor convenience fee. But this, I think, is something that, pretty much is as close to the... Now, yes, this is a more performant system, and obviously it costs a bit more. But remember, I could save around $200 off of this if I chose to go back down to 16 gigs of RAM. Maybe I got a weaker graphic card. Maybe I went
What
down
a
to like
cool deck.
Ryzen 5 or something, right? Instead of 7. But remember, this is a bit more performant. I would say a fair amount more performant than what the PS5 Pro is offering. And with all of this, you do have the option of, again, cutting down this into a more reasonable budget, close to the PlayStation 5 if you chose to downgrade certain parts. But I chose to keep it a bit future-proof because I feel like, when you're in this market, you probably want to spend a little bit more, get a more performant system, because it isn't just about playing video games with PC gaming.
Oh wait,
so
am I
if you're somebody
poisoned?
that wants to, be a content creator in the video
Right.
game space, it might be better for you to buy this system setup versus just going out of your way to buy a singular gaming console that you can just play video games on, but maybe not be able to produce content with the same level of quality that you would expect with a PC. Now, I didn't factor in an operating system or a monitor because ultimately when you're buying a console, you're factoring in the TV and the monitor separately. And nobody buys Windows, okay? No psychopath that I know of purchases a Windows license, okay? Usually people just go to Microsoft Windows, download the ISO file, and install it onto their system. That's why nearly in every gameplay recording video you see from any of your favorite fucking YouTubers, you'll probably notice activate Windows at the bottom right, or they'll edit it in a way where it doesn't appear. You see, I don't really believe anybody purchases Windows. If you do buy Windows, you are a very, very rare exception that I've noticed, okay? Because ain't nobody fucking buying any of those weird Windows 11 Pro licenses, okay? It's just
Oh,
how
so it does
I haven't bought
reduce.
Windows in like 6 years, okay? And if
Oh
you're
my
using
god,
Linux,
come
even
on,
better,
game.
okay? Even better. You don't have to worry about licenses. And if you're just installing Linux, maybe instead of the NVIDIA graphic card, go for the AMD stuff because they just work a whole lot better underneath the Penguin. So yeah, looking at this system right over here, I can confidently say that the PlayStation Pro is definitely a scam product. And given the fact that this is not a console, these specific units, these specific pieces of hardware can be overclocked and run far in excess of whatever these consoles are doing because your method of cooling and your method of, keeping these systems running in a sane temperature is a lot better, is a lot more, optimized towards your end. So one of the things that I saw from yesterday's video, one, interesting little point, was people brought up like, hey, why do people not complain about the price of an iPhone? Which, have you been on the internet the last couple years? Tons of people complain about iPhone prices. For instance, Apple just unveiled the iPhone 16 Pro with Apple Intelligence. Now, if you wanted to look at pricing for this, get ready for this abomination. Yeah, an iPhone 16 Pro Max starts from $11.99 US, okay? So yeah, that's pretty expensive. And we're not even getting into upgrading the actual hardware or the storage. But here's the thing, I will counter you with this. You probably use your smartphone more than you use a gaming console literally every day, okay? This shouldn't really be a topic of discussion. There's a good chance that if you're buying a phone, you're using it for your personal life, your work life, you use it a heck of a lot more than you would ever use an actual gaming console, okay? Gaming consoles are used strictly for gaming. This is used for actual work, browsing the internet, doing everything in your life. But one thing that really, really hits me the hardest from this is the lack of an actual disk drive in the system. Now, I touched upon this briefly in the last video for a minute, but to give you an idea about it, this is the disk drive from PlayStation that you can buy right now at a store, okay? So for digital consoles, the actual disk drive is $80, okay? You buy this thing, you slap it into a supported console, and what you can do is then connect to the internet, basically marry the drive and the console together once, and then you basically have a disk drive attached to your digital console. Now, I believed that when the gaming console companies came out with these digital versions, like the PlayStation 5 Digital and the Xbox Series S, it was originally billed as a way to give a cheaper console to people, to enter into the space. So you save $100 on the Blu-ray drive, but you get into the same generation of consoles. Now, I think it's a pretty dangerous precedent that gaming companies are setting. See, for Microsoft and Sony, they're big businesses, okay? The last thing they care about is you as a consumer. This is why I hate shit like console wars, because people tend to get really fucking, uppity about trying to fight for their specific brand of plastic. This is big corporate America. They only care about the bottom line. They do not care about your experience, okay? Unless you actually moan for it. Now, here's the thing. When buying physical media, okay, I am playing these games actively. Games like System Shock Remake on my PlayStation, Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance on my PlayStation, Final Fantasy Rebirth, I'm trying to platinum this on the PlayStation. That's a commitment right there. Spider-Man 2, I'm just going through the New Game Plus for the trophy. It's a great game, awesome time, even though it's a little short and a very safe sequel. And of course, Final Fantasy 16, got the DLC, playing through it on the PlayStation. And of course, Astrobot, which is a very, very good platformer game that Sony made, okay? So W's where W's are. You know what the commonality between every single one of these physical discs are? You do not need the internet to play these video games, okay? So to give an idea, one of the biggest forms of weird gaslighting that I've seen on the internet in the last several years, and anybody who is in the physical media space cringes anytime they hear this. All these physical discs allegedly are just licenses, but they don't actually contain the game. No, these are...
Oh yeah, I've seen people fucking say that. Those people can go fuck themselves. If I can play the game without the internet, I own the fucking game.
From start to end without any form of patches needed to be downloaded. Now, sure, you could download a patch and it might make the experience, better. It might fix a couple issues, might fix a couple glaring issues. But generally, when these games are printed, they are finished from beginning to end. Now, there are some exceptions, okay? Online-only MMOs. You know why I don't buy them on a fucking disc? Because I know they're online-only MMOs. That would be stupid. There are other scenarios, right? Usually when a game, specifically from EA, Ubisoft, the scum of the earth, come out and tell you, yeah, we're going to sell you Assassin's Creed Shadow, but there's going to be a download required even if you get a disc. Well, you couldn't fit Assassin's Creed onto a disc? Well, you needed me to download something? Yeah, at that point, I don't even consider giving that company money, okay? Unless the product is used, and that's pretty much the extent of the relationship. And that's pretty much the one rare exception. Generally speaking, most games you buy nowadays in the marketplace, I would say 95% of them are all completed and finished on the disc. So Sony gives this initial, feeling to everyone, right? And even back in the PS4 days, when they were dealing with Xbox One and their shitty online practices, they basically, went up into their faces and said, hey, listen, you can just share discs around with your friends and you don't have to worry about gaming licenses and who owns what. It's all attached to a disc. Everything in the game, all you got to do is put it into a console and just play it. Now, here's the thing. With a digital console, that's kind of the first foot in the door for these companies, Sony and Microsoft, to take away any form of ownership for these video games. And especially video games that constantly keep getting delisted. Like, imagine trying to buy a Forza game from Microsoft, and, if you don't buy it within the first couple years of its life cycle, it's never going to be sold again because car licenses are the most fickle things imaginable. So even when it comes to Microsoft in that case, I've basically given up on them trying to preserve and keep their games in a physical format. Games like Starfield, Halo Infinite, a lot of these games literally do not ship completely on the disc. You need a download to complete any of these titles. It's wild enough that even with games like Halo Infinite, they don't even ship the campaign that you can play completely offline on the disc itself. It's just a shame, and it's a spit in the face to people who want to actually preserve and keep these games down the road. Imagine if 20, 30 years ago, the internet was still prominent, and games like Chrono Trigger or any of these titles back in the SNES were literally attached to online services. And if they weren't ever re-released, you could never play them again. Imagine games like Metal Gear Solid 4 that don't have a re-release to this day. Imagine if that was tied to an online-only server and you lost the ability to preserve that game. You would basically lose an entire chunk of gaming history, an entire franchise's history right there. And that's a fucking reality we have to deal with a lot of game franchises now. So the PlayStation 5 Pro, the fact that it doesn't come bundled with this disc shows me that the route that Sony wants to take is no more different than the route that Microsoft is taking. A lot of these companies benefit from the fact that when they go to a digital storefront, you have no option but to buy from their actual licensed storefront at all. Usually when you go into like a mom and pop shop or even a GameStop, you might be able to pick up a physical copy for a cheap price, okay? You might be able to pick up games down the road for like $10, $15. Good luck trying to see some of those sales make it all the way to a digital platform. The thing about even digital platforms is, compared to the PC, the Sony platform and Microsoft, they don't give you competing storefronts. It's just one storefront, and that's pretty much all it comes down to. But I think the most insulting thing about this is you don't actually even get the savings passed on to you. Like, it's crazy how a game costs $70 today, right? Like GTA 6 is going to cost you $70 next year. It's going to cost you $70 whether you buy a physical platform version of it or you buy the digital license. And the thing is, why would you, if given the option, not buy the physical version? Are you afraid that discs are going to get scratched? Are you worried about things like space? I mean, those are valid concerns, but when it comes to owning an actual piece of product that you bought, if you're paying the same amount, what is worth more, a license and the game code you keep forever, or a digital license that could at any moment be removed from you? The game could be updated at one point that could remove certain features, certain pieces of music, especially for a game like Grand Theft Auto 6. You think when GTA 6 drops, you're going to get GTA 7 after 5 years? No, it's going to be as long of a wait as we had with GTA 5 to 6. And you can bet your ass by the time GTA 7 drops and me and you are collecting social security checks, GTA 6 might have content removed. It might have music removed. But with physical media, you get to keep that kind of stuff forever. But ultimately, long story short, the biggest problem that I see with these gaming companies is pushing the aspect of taking away that ownership, or at least trying to get it normalized. Look, I feel like if you're in a market to buy a professional product, you probably want physical media. And it baffles me why Sony is trying to nickel and dime for such a meaningful feature, right? Especially when, at the end of the day, if you're paying $1,000 anyways, what's so bad with paying the extra $50 or adding that in to slightly absorb the cost just to have actual physical media present? Unless, of course, for a company like Sony, they want you to not go in that route. Because here's the thing. If they're not passing the savings on to you, $70 for them for a digital license, which costs them far less to distribute from a server to your PlayStation than having discs pressed, boxes made, shipped to storefronts, yeah, they're not passing any of these savings to you. And you bet your ass if the world goes digital, especially the gaming world, that's never going to pass to you. Even with PC gaming, with Steam, Epic Games, games on PC are still the same price as what console players are paying, day one. We don't get the savings, all right? We just literally have digital storefronts giving us digital keys. And at least in the PC's case, it's kind of a shame that there is no market for physical media that is being released in today's day and age. Unless, of course, you go with like really special releases, like I think it's Baldur's Gate 3, and even then I don't think that version actually even shipped with a physical media component. Yeah, it's insane. But yeah, I wanted to look back into this PlayStation scam because ultimately, the price they're selling the system at, you're getting dangerously close, if not right at the market, the front door of PC gaming. And at this point, if they're turning these systems, both Microsoft and Sony, into boxes where you're just buying watered down, locked computers, why not just stick with Nintendo products? Because at least they care about physical media, even though I have my own issues with Nintendo. This is just not good. This is not a system that I like. And ultimately, I feel like digging deeper into it has just kind of made me a little bit more cynical of Sony. And one thing, for sure, this is not just me saying this. It's plenty of people in the community talking exactly. And again, if you're going to bring fanboyism into it, I want people to really counter and start a discussion in the comment section below. Because yeah, gaming is important to me. Gaming is literally one of the reasons why I make videos. And one of the things important to me with gaming is preserving the stuff that I love. If you can't preserve video games, then the future is fucking bleak. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar, and yeah, I'm out.
All right. I'm back. I'm back from Australia, all the way from down under, and I did bring exactly one souvenir with me, but I flew in this morning because Apple said they were going to announce some stuff, and they did. There was an event today. So here's my first impressions. So we got the iPhone 16 and 16 Pro today, along with new AirPods and Apple Watch, and I've got some hands-on and some first impressions for you of all that stuff right here. So let's just start with the new phones. We knew this was coming, right? A very, very minor incremental overall update. But somehow Apple's still got to try to get people to buy it. So what will they do? So iPhone 16 looks very much like iPhone 15, but there's some new colors, as you can pretty much always count on. This year it's ultramarine, which is kind of this indigo, pretty sick, teal, pink, black, and white. And the cameras, instead of being diagonally oriented, are now lined up again next to each other like it was back in the iPhone 10 days. But it's not just a retro touch, that's also so it can shoot spatial videos and pictures now, so the sensors are aligned with each other again. But then everything else, the rounded corners, the size of the regular phone and the Plus phone, the speakers, the antenna lines, everything just basically the same. Not much new going on here. Inside, they bumped it up from the A16 Bionic to a new A18, so there's some solid performance improvements in the 20 to 30% range, better ray tracing, and a 2 times faster neural engine and 8 gigs of RAM for all that Apple Intelligence stuff. Really the most underrated new hardware to me, though, that they talked about is Apple briefly mentioned that these new phones will all have larger batteries. And so that seems to imply that it will actually have better battery life, but also at no point did Apple ever say any numbers. Not a single number was uttered during the battery section, no graphs or anything like that. So we don't know exactly how much bigger this new battery actually is, and the only numbers we've been able to find is if you look on Apple's compare page for the phones, it said the iPhone 15 would get a battery life of 20 hours of video playback, and this new 16 gets 22. So I'm going to be putting these through the paces. You already know if you want to get subscribed to be among the first to see the full review, that's when we'll be able to figure out if it's actually a significant improvement in battery in other ways. But as of right now, better battery, sure. And then I never thought I'd say this sentence again, but this new iPhone has 2 new buttons. So first of all, it gets the action button from last year's Pro. So now you can do the exact same customized shortcuts from a flashlight or Shazam to a Siri shortcut or whatever you want. And then there's also another new button called Camera Control. And this second button, it's a touch-sensitive cutout covered in sapphire with a Taptic engine behind it. Now it does actually move, it is an actual button, just to be clear, but just like the trackpad on a lot of modern laptops, the vibration motor clicks to also make a half press feel like you're clicking a 2-stage button, like a camera shutter button. And it is also very convincing. So the magic of this camera control area, is what they're calling it, is that it is pressure sensitive and it's basically a tiny trackpad on the corner of the phone. It's capacitive sensitive, so you can swipe and do gestures along the corner of the phone. And so Apple's decided everything that this button will do will be camera related. So if you press it from the lock screen, it opens the camera app, and then when you're in, you can click it again to take a photo, or long press to start taking a short video.
So I literally did the exact
then
same
you can
thing that
do
Arvin would have
a little
done.
half-strength
Oh
double
God,
tap
I'm an
to open up
idiot.
a menu for different camera options, and then slide your finger along this camera control to change them. So, you know, it takes some getting used to. You got to get used to the placement of your hand and how fast you swipe, but once you kind of know what you're doing, it feels pretty smooth and it's pretty sensitive and intuitive. So this is all a bunch of functionality that's being added basically into Apple's camera app, but Apple's also said that third-party apps that use the camera will also be able to take advantage of the camera control. So Snapchat, Instagram, Halide, etc., they'll be able to also use the slider. So I think it's pretty cool. I think it's technically very impressive.
What was the Pokemon V card that I used in my old Klawf deck? Because I used to use...
Welcome back to this US Open office plan.
Miller just
Oh, that's right, the Electrode. Duh.
technical jargon.
Let's see if they can use Grammarly to their
Damn,
advantage.
that's like the
Jones uses it
best
to make a
thing.
point in a friendly way. And now
Let's-
Miller's taking a technical doc and
Let's
asking Grammarly
think
to
if there's a
rewrite
V
it.
card
Let's
that I
see what
could
makes the
use.
difference.
I do like
It's not long, but does
Ursaluna.
Jones feel it?
Yes, they're aligned. Game, set, and match.
Thanks to Grammarly, every word you write helps you reach your goal.
Download Grammarly for free.
I'm just trying to figure out, kind of similar to the action button, how useful it will actually be. Like, it is kind of in this awkward spot on the bottom right of the phone. It makes sense as a horizontal shutter button, but they're kind of splitting the difference, trying to also make it usable in a vertical orientation. I'm curious how many people actually use this regularly, because again, it is on all the phones. But yeah, that's about it for the 16. I mean, the display also does now drop down to 1 nit minimum brightness, so that's great at night. It is also still a 60 hertz display on an $800 flagship in 2024. So that's really disappointing for me personally, but overall this phone is, I'd say it's still pretty tempting to say that this base model is probably a better buy for most people over the Pro phones, but let's just get into the Pro phones, shall we? New colors this year. Desert Titanium, which goes alongside the classic natural titanium, and then a slightly darker black and a slightly whiter white. But otherwise, same design again, plus the new camera control. And the main updates with the Pro are the new screens and the new chip. So the phones actually get slightly bigger this year. So the screen sizes are up to 6.3 inches on the Pro and 6.9 inches on the Pro Max, thanks to the thinner bezels, which I didn't think I would notice, but I'm actually looking at them and they are a little noticeably thinner, so you can kind of tell. And inside there is also a new chip as well. It's the A18 Pro. So this is the new highest end chip in any iPhone. And this again should have performance boost and efficiency boost over last year's Pro phone, again in the 20 to 30% range. So CPU and GPU improving, better ray tracing, should still have the faster USB 3 speeds that the Pros get. But again, the efficiency improvements have them saying that the Pro Max will now be the longest battery life ever in an iPhone. By how much? I don't really know, but that's good to see. But the camera is, of course, always the highlight of the Pro phones, and there are 3 new cameras on these Pros versus last year. So a new 48 megapixel main camera, then a higher resolution 48 megapixel ultra-wide camera from the 12 from last year, and then the smaller Pro also gets a 5x telephoto now. So the smaller Pro used to have a 3x, but now both Pros have matching all 3 cameras. It's also wireless charging a little bit faster, 25 watts, so that'll get you 50% in 30 minutes of charging with the new MagSafe charger, nothing too crazy. And also 4K 120 FPS slow motion straight out of the cameras now, and that's pretty sick. Now I'm sure the file sizes will be nuts from the ProRes version of this, but it gives you really functional files that you can do a lot with. It also totally proves to me that they could handle processing enough to shoot 8K 30, but they're just choosing not to. Now, there was a whole lot of talk, a whole long section of the keynote where they constantly talked about Apple Intelligence, and I mean, they have to because it's a really big deal for them, but the thing is, these phones will launch with iOS 18, 18.0, and that means they will launch with no Apple Intelligence features at all. No Genmoji, no image playground, no writing tools, nothing. That shiny brand new iPhone 16 that you take out the box in September 2024 and start using in a couple weeks will have the old Siri on it. Now they'll start to come out bit by bit with software updates. So 18.1 has the new Siri and a bunch of writing tools and some other stuff, but it's becoming harder and harder to pair that stuff directly to this new phone as a part of this upgrade. I mean, if you've watched my videos before, you know about one of the golden rules, which is to never buy something based on the promise of future software updates. So this feels like a big separation moment for the iPhone, at least to me, where each year of the new physical phone that you buy is just a small improvement. It's just a little bit faster chip, a little bit better screen, slightly better cameras. But on the other side is this rapidly improving ball of all this AI stuff that is not launching on the phone, but that is the totally separate, really big reason to get the phone. So yeah, it feels like I'm gonna need to review all of that stuff separately in its entirety when it does finally come out, because it comes out so separately from the phone itself.
27% thinner, more refined, same mouse grade protection.
Anyway, there were also some other Apple announcements today, aside from just the iPhones, and we got new AirPods and new watches. So there were lots of rumors about this huge redesign with the Apple Watch for the 10th year, but now that we actually see it, Apple Watch Series 10 is mostly slightly new again. Now, okay, it is 10% thinner and 10% lighter, and that's nice, and it has a slightly larger display again with thinner bezels and better viewing angles, plus a new S10 SIP inside. That's it. Oh, and of course you got to throw in some new colors as well. So the aluminum has silver or rose gold or this new jet black finish, which is a bit of a shiny throwback. And then they've dropped stainless steel for titanium, which now comes in natural titanium, gold colored, or slate colored. So that's the redesign. Again, it is pretty minor. I don't want to downplay the amount of technical engineering that goes into achieving these things. Like, clearly you still have to combine the metal backplate and the charger into one piece with the antennas integrated to improve the thinness.
Oh,
and
Electrode
they're using
is
what they're
still
calling the first wide-angle OLED display to help you see the screen
available.
from more angles,
I
which
thought
actually
he
does
was
matter on a watch.
phased
But, yeah,
out.
I think if you were expecting
Okay,
some
I'm gonna put
crazy
Electrode
radical,
back in the deck then.
square watch or something nuts, then yeah, this is very much still the classic Apple Watch.
Because yeah, that
There are
makes
some new
no
watch
sense
faces,
not
since the
to still
second
have
hand
him
now
then.
is always visible, even when always on display is
In
gone
which
dark,
case,
so that's cool. There's also a new depth app and a new Tize
do I
app,
want
which
to
I think looks really
lower my
cool.
Ogre
I don't
Palm
even
by
surf or
1?
have any use for this app, but it's just kind of cool flipping through and seeing exactly when sunrise and sundown
my
are
God.
and high tide and low tide are every day if you're
It's a
near
big
a
fucking
coastline.
deal.
And they also introduced sleep apnea detection using only the gyroscope. There's another coming soon feature. It's like pending FDA approval and
'Cause
regulatory bodies around the world to actually launch. But
If we're going
the
by
fact that it
that,
only needs the
he can do
gyroscope to detect it, I
200.
thought that was pretty cool. So those
Hold
Series
on.
10 watches are going to start at the same
100.
prices as last year's Series 10 watches. And then we also got
140.
a new Apple Watch
So he
Ultra
can still do
2.
280.
And by new Apple Watch Ultra 2,
He can still take out
I
a fucking
mean
Charizard.
a satin black
Oh my god.
finish
Like, do I
of the
not need
existing Apple
Ogre
Watch
Pawn
Ultra
at
2.
all?
And I am so into it. I have absolutely no real reason to upgrade, but this is just one of those things
Yeah,
that
let's do
companies
this. Let's cut down
sometimes
my
do.
Ogre
They just make
Pawns.
a
Let's
matte black
increase
version of something
my
that I totally don't
Electrodes.
need, but
And
suddenly they
then-
have my shipping address and credit card info, and I just end up buying one. I'm told this is a pretty robust coding process, so
Let's not
hopefully
use
it
Secret
shouldn't
Box
chip
then
or
either.
scratch too easily, and then maybe show like light raw
Let's
titanium underneath.
use
But also it's an ultra watch, so I think someone's gonna do it. But then there are also the new AirPods, the AirPods upgrades, or
Forest Seal Stone
upgrades.
again.
One of them's a fake upgrade. So the new base AirPods, AirPods 4, have been redesigned, and there's actually two versions. So for $129, there's the new AirPods 4 with the new shape,
And then let's
and then
go
for
back
$179,
to doing
there's the same new AirPods version,
Legacy.
but you also get active noise
Do I-
cancellation and a wireless charging case with a tiny speaker built in for Find My.
This changes
So
everything.
yeah, this new shape,
Oh
it's a
my
little
God,
different, so it
Josh.
may fit a little better in some people's ears, like mine. Like the old ones are terrible for me, but these are a little better. But that also means they may be a little bit worse in some people's ears. But yeah, to get, I think, for under $200, active noise cancellation in AirPods with a 4-hour battery life, I think there'll be a nice little target demographic waiting for that. And then AirPods Pro 2 didn't really get a whole lot technically new here, but they also did get certified as a clinical grade hearing aid, which is pretty awesome. Plus some other hearing protection and testing features are added as well. But the biggest upgrade of the day, and by that I mean non-upgrade, fake upgrade of the day, goes to AirPods Max. Now keep in mind, these headphones came out originally in 2020. Like we reviewed these a long time ago. These were $550 when they launched, and they're still $550 in 2024. And they still have a lightning port, and they still don't have an on-off button, and they still have that dumb case that they came with. So they finally get this update, AirPods Pro 2. And the update is 5 new colors, and they have a USB-C port now, which, okay, yeah, they literally had a lightning port in 2024, so we're happy to see that, but then that's it? Like, there's not a single other change to these new AirPods. They still don't have an on-off button in 2024. They still have that stupid case they came with. Like, they got the feedback. We know this case isn't good. They didn't improve that at all. They still have the H1 chip, even though all the other AirPods are on the H2 chip now. What? Did the entire AirPods Max team go into a coma for 4 years and then wake up a week before this announcement and scramble to put this together? This is weird. The sad part is I'm probably still going to upgrade to them anyway because I can't carry a lightning cable around anymore, and I keep forgetting it, and then they keep dying, and I keep needing a lightning cable, and it's just, let me just stop having that headache. But yeah, weird non-upgrade, very disappointing AirPods Max. But that's basically it. Those are my announcement thoughts and reactions and first impressions. And generally, yeah, not a ton of major new stuff. I think really the two big highlights are, one, this separation between the hardware upgrade and all the software that's coming to the hardware but not launching with it. And honestly, too, is
I
this
think I still
camera
like
control
the legacy
thing, this
energy
weird button that they've
play
added.
instead.
It's fascinating. The fact that they've added it to both the Pro and non-Pro phones when
Prime
I didn't
Catcher
think
is
they
very
would.
convenient though.
That's interesting. The fact
let's
that
do that.
case manufacturers are going to have to deal with this now. Like some of them are going to have a little cutout for it.
Holy
Some of them
shit.
may try to do the same thing. Apple did,
Electrodes
like
back.
a
Let's
capacitive
do
glass
this.
thing over the top of it to keep it flush. That's
Thanks.
interesting. The fact that it won't come out with the two-stage shutter
I was
press in the
basically
actual camera app
shortchanging
until
my
later this year via
my
a
Klawf
software
deck.
update.
I
That's
didn't need to.
just weird
still.
too. There's just a lot of fun, weird stuff going on with the shutter button. But now that you've made it this far, let me know in the comment section
Got a
down
lot of
below
different
what
things
you
that I
want to
can do
see
now.
in those full reviews as you get subscribed to see them. And thanks to Anchor for sponsoring this video. Their latest MagGo lineup is out, the 6 series.
I don't want to go first. And I drew both electrodes right away. Are you fucking kidding me? That is not what I wanted to see. Okay. You're going second. You gotta have a Marite on deck. You might be playing a Charizard deck. Why go second? Have you been getting donked a bunch? Like, it's the only thing that I can fucking think. I've got all of the tool cards. Okay, let's see what you do on your first turn. You're not evolving anybody, I can tell you that much. My problem is I have no draw cards. I have literally no draw cards. I am fucked. Yeah, you're playing a Charizard deck. Why would you want to go second? Not that it matters in my case, like I'm kind of fucked right now, but... I might be better off not attacking you first. Of course I do Squawk the turn after. I would have fucking wanted to use him. I can't do anything.
There are items Fortnite regrets adding. From secret ways to cheat boss fights, to the most broken combo, we'll start with the War Machine Jetpack. Epic Games never wanted you to get across the map at insane speeds, but Skull Dash War Machine's jetpack boost is insane. On his head. Easy! One of the most ridiculous parts of Captain America's shield is the fact that it has aimbot. That means you can straight up throw this wherever you want, even if you had no idea an enemy was there. And yeah, thanks to Ricochet, it'll hit him around corners.
Oh, we can't hit him down there. This is OP. Oh my goodness.
That's not even the most ridiculous feature. There's one item that's meant to protect you from all weapons, and that is the shield bubble. Unless you have cap shield, throwing it directly at the bubble clearly doesn't work. However, when it returns to you... Oh my god! And this exact same thing applies to armored walls. It does almost no damage until you return the shield, letting you strike anyone inside. But there's an item that everyone's trying to use, except it's impossible to find. If you survive over 15 minutes in a game, then Loot Island will start to appear. At that moment, the game will roll a dice, giving you only a 5% chance of seeing Doom's Island, and this resets every game. Not only that, but you have to be the first player in your lobby to capture it. After all these steps, you'll be rewarded with the most powerful mythic in half a decade, Doom's Ultra Armor. It gives you the power of Thanos and Doom combined. This thing is so powerful, it basically guarantees you the win. And if you somehow manage to die with it, you won't drop the armor. It's 100% exclusive to the person who picked it up, making this the most secret feature in years. And if you missed out on the statuesque mode, you are literally blocking yourself from a hidden feature. Despite the fact cosmetics aren't pay to win, this one can unlock the ability to look like a statue, letting you completely trick enemies.
Hello there.
Oh, welcome to my statue. But I don't think Fortnite intended for this next trick to even be possible. With Emma Frost Medallion, you can ping nearby enemies for a short amount of time. But what if you want to do it for way longer? Well, just grab some friends and pass it to them when your ping expires. They could use it straight away with no cooldown. This means if you're passing this between 4 people, it is a constant UAV. And did you know that Fortnite once secretly brought back Double Pump? Instead of a shotgun though, you can use it with an even more powerful weapon, the Sticky Grenade Launcher.
Right, I know what your videos are like. I've seen your videos and I don't...
Bro, I don't think they thought of this when they put this in, bro. Let's go get him while he least expects it.
Get over here!
Oh my goodness me.
Oh, and that's prized. Okay, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to see.
Underrated mythics. It's all thanks to a secret
I've got both of those already. Fuck it. Just...
Come to Cap Shield again because it is probably one of the most versatile weapons in
So you can
Fortnite
do
history. Just by holding
140, 280.
The power to block bullets. Anything that hits the shield, even when you're just walking around, will be blocked by the vibranium. And at the start of the season, it was even more ridiculous. Players realized you could equip a Monarch pistol, and whenever you threw Cap Shield, it would take the ability of the Monarch, turning this damage into almost twice as much. One of the most OG hidden features was when Fortnite handed us the Deep Dab. Now, the emote was pretty funny on its own until players realized it could break the game. All you needed to do was place a wall, add a window, and let the chaos commence. Oh! Now, no one is talking about the greatest hiding spot in Chapter 5. By breaking certain walls, you could actually hide underneath Doom's throne. This is ridiculous. It lets you wipe out Doombot easily. Not to mention, it is an insane way to hide from enemies. Just leave Doombot alone, luring them into the room, and then just wipe them out. When gas cans are on the map,
Yeah, because I have a couple ways that I can hit you with 180 damage,
you could use them to glitch inside a bunker.
including putting that on him.
These aren't meant to open until future storms, so when an enemy walks up to a vault as it opens, the last thing they expect is for someone to be in there waiting for them.
Hello there.
I know this is controversial, but one of the most underrated vehicles of Chapter 5 was the War Bus. For the time we had with it, nobody really appreciated it, especially when it had one of the best secret features out there. Thanks to the built-in EMP device, not only could you disable nearby cars, but if you were close to a vending machine, it would drop constant gold. And because you never ran out of EMPs, you could sit here doing this forever, making it one of the greatest ways to farm gold we've ever had. It wasn't the only vehicle with a hidden ability. When shield bubbles are in the loot pool, you could throw them onto your dirt bike, and for some reason, it would stick to it. You'd expect to drive off and leave it behind, only for the shield to completely protect you. All the way back in Chapter 3, you can turn a regular old chicken into one of the craziest Fortnite features. Simply run into a spider web and...
Here we go! Oh my god! We're already 160, 70, almost 180 meters up in the sky.
If that wasn't enough, in Chapter 2, players realized you could combine it with a Spire Tower.
So you hit me for 180.
Items been the Falcon
Nope,
Scout.
so I'm not dead.
Brief appearance in Chapter 4, and players only used it to ping nearby enemies. Except this had a feature that let you pick up things, not just items, but also kidnapping enemies.
I'm wondering. So I can do 280, but I would need human player.
But still, not as ridiculous as trying to shoot someone who knows martial arts.
So I need to be able to do the extra 50 damage.
Super powerful. If you know how to use it properly, you could literally dodge bullets.
Can't handle the chicken.
So I think the play here is Klawf.
And if you were around last season, you'll know about how insane the boss cars were. Nobody wanted to play because they were that powerful, and yet you could somehow make them stronger. It's all thanks to one hidden ability. Your teammate could sit in the passenger seat, and they will get increased fire rate from the nitro. This means they could pull out a boom bolt or SMG and suddenly become the strongest player on the map. Yet one of the craziest combos we've had in years had people threatening to quit the game. When the dub came out, it was a nasty exotic on its own, and players loved using it. Then they realized it could be combined with a reality augment named Soaring Sprints, and let's just say it was busted.
Dude, what the f? Yo, he's trying to shoot you! Yo, you gonna oh, push him in a storm. Push him in a storm. Damn. Oh my god! Yeah, they're in the water. They're trying. Yeah, they're in the water trying. Just stay. Just stay.
They're trying to go around.
They're gonna die, bro. They're gonna die. They're gonna die. They're gonna die. No way this is happening. Yeah!
If you remember the Ripsaw launcher, you'll know it wasn't in game for long. This thing made such a brief cameo that nobody realized it had a secret feature. By shooting the Ripsaw at the ground, you could land on it and just take it for a ride. And that's not even the best cannon we've had. Optimus Prime brought a Cybertron cannon with him, and this weapon has been totally forgotten by players. Except it was super useful, all thanks to a secret purpose. By jumping off builds or trees in the jungle, you can use the pushback effect to save yourself from any fall damage. Those were items Fortnite regrets adding because they got abused with combos. It's been Tommy and Cupid here on Top 5 Gaming.
Roblox is way more fun when you have Robux. But Robux cost money, and that's not fun at all. Unless you have Buff. With Buff, you can earn points by playing Roblox or any other of the supported top leading games, and convert them to Robux and many other awesome prizes. It really is that easy. If free Robux sounds nice to you, download Buff now.
Man, what a terrible match. I didn't start
Shaylee said, press the engage or I'll stick to.
to get to hit you until 2 fucking turns later. Let's do Ben.
I agree.
You have 15 cards left, and I only have 9 cards in my discard. Like, I should see the level of competency my deck is experiencing right now. I have 1 remaining. I'm gonna do 240. Bless you.
Thank you.
got a prime catcher. I can do a switch. I need an energy card though. Or Pokemon V. But both Pokemon V are now in the pile. Oh, and the 4 Seal Stone is still in there too. So I would need to do... Oh, I've got the Prime Catcher, so that works actually. So I think what I need to do is get down to 1. So I think he is the play. So we would want to take your Charmander out. And put him in. Because at 260, you can do 4 times 3 is 120. Well, you can do 300 then, can't you? I think I'm gonna be fucked regardless. I think that's probably where that card comes into play. Or if he was able to take on more health here or something. I'm not entirely sure. But either way, he needs energy. We'll do this and this. You're 240. Right, because he does 180. Which would bring him to 300. Yeah, this entire thing just comes down to just a very slow start to the game for me. So disappointing. Oh, fuck it, let's just give him that. Fuck you, Charmander. Because he'd be perfect if he could resist dark. That's where he'd be built perfect for. You said you're ready for bed. Okay, let's go to bed.